I can just picture myself in session writing lots of useless notes, trying to put things together. And I'm wondering how would you write the notes to okay, we 5 minutes ago we talked about this, maybe this is why she feels this way.
Right, right.
Yeah. Do you draw a triangle and
No, that's a good question. I don't write notes. So I just try to track things here.
yeah.
Yeah, because if I'm taking notes, I'll be distracted and I won't be able to
Mm,
be fully laser focused on her.
yeah.
It'd be like, that could be quite provocative for the patient. Like, are you actually with me or are you just with your notes?
Mm.
Mm,
So, I mean, it's not that you can't take notes, but I would just a word of caution. Uh, and if you do, just try to scribble very lightly, but primarily be focused on the patient and invite the patient to talk about how they feel about the fact that you're taking the notes. Some of them will find it provocative and be pissed. Some of them will feel like you're taking them seriously and they really appreciate that you're taking the notes, right? So people can feel differently about it, but just be open to inviting their feelings about it.
mm,
You're going to do it. But yeah, no, I don't do the notes. I just all up here. It's like pattern recognition and try and remembering stuff. And but if note taking is what you need to do, it's okay. Just be open to that they might have different feelings about it. Yeah.
mm,
Good question.
Mm. It is hard as well, Sophia, just so I can add, because I used to take notes and I found it really hard to be focused and also to not miss things that they say because ICDB is so moment to moment, right? And what is some of the so I think I think Johannes is obviously very advanced and you've done a lot of practice in this. That's why I've been asking you questions like how do you hold the train of thoughts in your mind and like think about the goals and then listen to them at the same time. Because I think that's a skill you have to train at. And
Mhm.
also sometimes I feel like you also have different goals. Like for example, if you have a client relationship goal and you have a feeling goal, and you're like, okay, there's a few things that we'll have to work on, but then you kind of have to let go of certain ones depending on what it is that's in the forefront.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it's in like now I think I've trained to listen for the intention, which is what am I working on with this client? What is it that is the causing their problems at the forefront? And then what is it that they're presenting to me that might be blocking this, like the
Yeah.
defense? And so from this, it kind of helps me move along. And then I write my notes at the end, just go, well, what is their defense? What is the primary thing? So it just jogs my memory for next time. But you don't need a lot of notes in ICP in order to have effective therapy.
Yes.
That's what I
I
find.
love that. I love that frame of analysis that you just offered, Jenny. That where are we headed and what's the patient doing right now, or what's happening between us that's getting in the way of that.
Mm,
Such an important frame of analysis. Thank you. Good, good, good.
mm,
Anything else before we press onward? No? Okay. You see how the patient said, yes, that checks out, meaning it
mm,
resonated with her. It really made sense to her that her self-criticism and perfectionism that was happening in real time was a substitute for the feelings towards the girlfriend. So she's like, that checks out, like in a sincere, genuine way, right?
mm,
Or that's how it struck me anyway. That is a really, really good sign. And it's not always easy to come by. Like your patients are not always going to just say, yeah, that makes sense. A lot of them are going to go, I don't know about that. I mean, that seems a little far-fetched, or I don't that, no, I don't see that.
mm.
So I want you to understand that just because you saw it go smoothly here with me and this patient, no, it's just not going to be smooth for a lot of people.
So
Well,
what happens? I mean, obviously this is defense, Johannes, right? Because I do see a lot of patients when I do try to do the clarification thing,
mhm.
they're like they just kind of like, oh, I don't know. Yeah, it's almost like it. They get anxious and then they then become helpless. I don't quite know actually how to interpret that defense. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, they don't fully agree with you, and then they get a little bit like,
Mhm.
yeah, okay, cool. Like, yeah, like, yeah. You know what
Mhm.
I mean?
I
I don't
do, I
know.
do, I do. I think it's a great point. And I
Yeah.
agree that that absolutely is what can happen sometimes with some
Mm,
people, that it's a
mm,
form of resistance. They don't want to acknowledge that reality,
mm,
and or they don't want to give you the common ground.
mm.
As
Okay.
a form of intimacy, emotional intimacy, to let you close and to go, yeah, I see that. Yeah, that
Mm,
resonates with me. Suddenly you're vibing together. There's closeness there.
mm,
So as a way to ensure that that doesn't happen, they might just be oppositional or contrarian or sort of clueless in a way that's actually resistance.
mm. Right. So resistance. Yeah. Okay.
Right,
So
right.
how do you address that? So, like a standard ICDP would be, so what are your feelings towards me right now?
Hmm.
Which I felt just never really clicked that well.
Right, right.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
how do you do that?
right. Well, it depends on the context and it depends on the patient. It's all case specific, but I'm trying to think of generic ways of dealing with
Mm,
that. So you might say, are you sure? Because I have a sense that what we're looking at right now is actually quite straightforward. I mean, it's just what happened here. We focused on your sister, you took a big sigh, and then
mm,
you started getting down on yourself and raking
mm,
yourself over the coals. I mean, that just strikes me as straightforward.
mm,
But you're saying you're just not getting it, but really? I have a hard time understanding that. So you can just
mm,
press the issue like, really? That
mm,
doesn't quite make sense. This isn't adding up. I mean,
mm,
you're really intelligent, you have a master's degree,
mm,
successful engineer, this is pretty straightforward what we're looking at here.
mm,
Are you sure that you're not actually seeing this? Could this cluelessness or whatever it is, argumentativeness, could this be just a mechanism to push me away,
mm,
to not face the feelings that might come up if we have common ground around this and you acknowledge this reality?
mm,
So you
mm,
be sort of just kind of press the interpretation that, wait a minute, what if you are actually getting it, but you're just, fobbing me off and keeping me.
mm. I like that. Mm, okay. Yeah.
Generically, that would be definitely at least one way to go.
Mm, mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
But here's the thing, this is important. Sometimes it is resistance, like you're bringing up, Jenny.
Mm,
Other times it's not. Other
mm,
times it's just genuinely there isn't enough
mm,
clarity and they need you to review it one more time or review the same pattern but
mm,
different example. So it just really kind of sinks in.
mm,
Maybe they're not that psychologically minded to begin with.
mm,
So sometimes you just need more clarification. You just need to let's look at this one more time now. So 2 minutes
mm,
ago, here's what happened. You see this, and you reverse engineer it. You just have to drive it home so they have the clarity. So
mm,
that could be another reason why someone
mm,
isn't getting it. So it's not always resistance. It can be genuine, just no, I just don't see it.
yeah. But either way, like reviewing it is helpful, to kind of go back and just go, hang on, let's stop, and then
Yeah.
kind of review what just happened.
Yeah.
Because I think I actually had a patient now that would talk about it, like that goes into a little bit of CPD when I point out the function. He's
Mm.
kind of like, oh, okay. And then he's like, oh, but I feel a bit dizzy, I don't quite get what you just said. And then I kind of try to review it. And then he's like, just smiles and kind of,
Mhm.
okay. And then he will have to change topic and come back to it later. But
Mm.
something in just being able to
Mhm.
tap out the function of, his poor problems. And he was referred because of a domestic violence issue towards his wife because his anger got triggered and then he tried to strangle her or something, and then he can't remember the whole incident. He
Mhm.
like blanked out with it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
something owning his problems is also very triggering, right?
right. And you're also pointing to the idea that them not getting it could actually be because their cognitive functions are disrupted. Like
Mm,
anxiety is too high and they're just not
mm,
going to forget it because they're too anxious.
Mm.
Oh, that's a really, really good point you're making. The last point to keep in mind is that you, as the therapist, you could just be wrong.
Mm.
You're actually barking up the wrong tree,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
you're going, you're trying to point something out, and it's like, do you see, da 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 da, and you're like, nah. And they might say, I don't think so. I think it's more like that. And it's not
Mm.
because they're being defensively contrarian or defiant or oppositional. No, they're actually onto what's happening and they're correcting you.
Yes. Yeah.
So just be open to that possibility as well.
Mm.